Welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Lily Allen Duenas. Together, we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. I wanted to let you all know that I'll be teaching yoga online this year. Classes will be live streamed and also available on demand. I have $15 coupons to send to new students. If you click the link in my show notes or head on over to my website, wildyogatribe.com, you'll find everything you need. I would love if you could join me for a class to help you feel centered, refreshed, and filled with ease. Ready to dive into the show? Let's get started. Namaste and welcome back to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Today I'm joined by Jennie Jackson. She is a yoga teacher from New Zealand and a studio owner. She teaches online and in person and offers yoga in New Zealand as well. Jen is a passionate advocate for the powerful practice of yoga, and that includes mindfulness, breathing, and meditation. She has experienced how profoundly life has changed because of these practices for herself and for her. She was, as she says, gifted a new lease on life after living with a degenerative disability and through a challenging journey of immobility and pain. But she was lucky enough to end up with a prosthetic device that helps her walk and do yoga pain-free, which is so amazing. She has been a yoga teacher since 2016, but a dedicated yoga practitioner since 1998. She specializes in restorative and accessible yoga for all. I am over the moon. I am thrilled. I am so happy Jen is with me today, and I can't wait to share her story with you all. So thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you again. Yes. So to dive into the conversation, I'd love to hear how yoga first came onto your radar way back in 1998.
Yeah, really first came onto my radar a bit earlier than that. I kind of forget when I go through my history of yoga. I was traveling with my sister through Asia and we ended up in Nepal and just had the most incredible experience there. It's kind of hard to explain. The moment we landed was just like, wow, this place is special. And so we sort of did our first yoga class there together. So that was my first introduction, which was a pretty powerful place to experience it. And then I just went through my travels and life happened. And then I found it back here in New Zealand when I was home. And I had feeling, you might understand, Lily, like, wow, what just happened? This is amazing. That really can't put into words the feeling of that first class, that something incredible just kind of I discovered. So, and from then on, I dabbled in and out of it and had intense periods and then periods of not doing it and babies and all that sort of thing. So I sort of settled into more of a really regular practice probably about 10 years ago, but sort of had lots of fun playing with all different styles. Yeah, it's now become a daily part of my life.
Oh, amazing. I can't believe your first class was actually in Nepal. That's so cool. I took my yoga teacher training. My 200 hours was in Kathmandu in Nepal. I was so lucky. And then I was able to return to Nepal again a second time. And I did a monastery, a meditation retreat at a Kopan in Kathmandu. And then I was teaching yoga in Nagarkot at a little mountain hotel for a couple of weeks. So
yes, I feel like I've been there. And I just met with my Buddhist teacher yesterday, and she's actually relocating to that monastery you just spoke of.
Oh, that's incredible. She's relocating to Kopan?
Yeah. She's been my Buddhist teacher here and she's off there now too. And she's very excited. She said it's a really powerful and beautiful place.
It is. The views are just stunning from the monastery. It's definitely perched up above the city and it's quiet. It is isolated while still being within walking distance of little shops on the hillside, but it's a really great spot. So what an amazing place to very first be introduced. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how about you tell our listeners more about you and your journey? I loved also sharing your bio with our listeners here in the intro about your new lease on life. And if you're comfortable to speak about it, I would love to hear more of your story.
Yeah, thank you. I was born with quite a severe disability in my feet. So my feet were the common word for it is club. They were kind of stuck up on my calves. So I had a lot of surgery and a lot of plaster casting, and one side was worse than the other. And by the time I was about 5, so a lot of time in and out of hospital, and sort of doctors telling my parents I probably wouldn't walk or walk properly, but they did a really good job, and I was very lucky. My mum was a nurse and my dad was amazingly supportive, so I got really good care. And then I was kind of okay. I was always, lagging behind physically and in quite a lot of pain growing up, but I managed it and got through life. And then when I hit my mid-30s, when I had my baby, my child, who's now 50, things do some worse and worse. The effects of all the surgery and the degeneration of my whole ankle was just going down. I was pretty close to a wheelchair, so I was on a walking stick a lot. I could hardly it was really affecting my mental health as well. I was really not having much fun at all. So I was having appointments for an elective amputation, and I just thought a lot of people with my condition do that. Just had enough of it, just take it off. And then luckily through Facebook, I was in a support group for my condition, and someone had discovered this amazing leg device. And so I followed the path down, rang her and talked to her. She was an American, and then I rang a lot of different people around the world. Spent about 6 months deciding, shall I, shan't I? Because for me, it was really expensive. It was a sort of a $20,000 trip and for the device and to go and get it all done. Anyway, we took the plunge and went up to Seattle in Washington in the US and got fitted with this incredible device. It's a cross between a prosthetic and a orthotic. So it does the walking for you, but you get to keep your leg. You strap it on, your foot gets footed into it. So that's completely custom made and just completely miraculous. And then I could just walk like a normal person. So from then, that was my new lease on life. We did this big trip around the States and Alaska and all the national parks and just had a fantastic time. And I've since been back to the Himalayas to some more yoga there and lots of hiking and a Purna rain, and then came back home and did my teacher training. I just got this spark of energy and I can do it kind of attitude and started to get into yoga and specifically adaptive yoga. So I had really good empathy for people that were going through physical challenges. Up until then, I really had to be creative and learn how to do yoga without standing on my feet. That's kind of the short story of a summary kind of the new lease on life.
Oh, yeah. Wow, Jen, I can't believe how much you've endured, like how much you've pushed through. And it sounds like it probably, maybe ebbed and flowed, but it sounds like it was pretty severe for a lot of your life.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And it's funny because right now I'm being reminded of it because my device needs repairs. So it's on its way to the States from New Zealand again to be fixed. You'd probably go up there if it wasn't strange times, interesting COVID time, but I can't get back into my country. But I'm sending it up to be repaired. So I'm experiencing right now, again, what I used to go through, which is a great reminder of I'm just so grateful to have received this device. I feel so lucky. Yeah, I'm going to have a hard couple of months, but I know that there's reprieve in sight, which is just amazing because I work with quite a lot of wheelchair clients who they're never going to walk again. So I feel so lucky that I found this device and I'm able to use it.
Oh, I'm just so grateful that you were able to find that and not do the elective surgery and then go hiking the Annapurnas. Like, high five.
Yeah, I know. I was pitching myself every day still. It's like, oh my God, 21 days in a row walking. It's just unheard of. Yeah, amazing.
So you've mentioned making yoga more accessible. Can you tell our listeners how yoga can be made more accessible to people who are perhaps not just everything we presume, right? Just presumed able-bodied is what I'd say the average yoga teacher does. I'd love to hear some thoughts, perspective, opinion, tips.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's a big thing. It's really making it open to all bodies so they can access the practice, and it's way more than the asana, the poses. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think yoga is all of the downward dogs and the sun salutations and the warriors and the balancing and the twisting, and that's all a fantastic part of it, of course, but it's not all of it. It's such a beautiful, holistic comprehensive philosophy that there's so much more you can do with the breathing, the meditation, the concentration, the sense withdrawal, the yamas and the niyamas. There's just so much to dive into without having to have that physical ability. But keeping in mind that the asana is an important part of the practice. So there's just really, you need to be creative and ways to adapt that you can think, right, what's this pose trying to achieve here? What's the purpose of this? And then make that work for someone that is in a wheelchair or has had a stroke, or one leg's working, the other leg's not, or they might have one arm and all sorts of different things, or cerebral palsy with the spasticity in their muscles. It's quite individual. You can also have a whole group class with all those different things going on, which I have, and you can involve everyone. It's just making sure everyone feels a part of it and being really mindful of your language when you're teaching. For example, this is the full expression of the pose, and if you can't do it, do this. That's just a no-no. That automatically sets up people for like, okay, I'm failing at this. I'm not able, so I'm going to do the second-rate thing. So there's a real art and a skill, and I've learned through my training, my special training in accessible yoga, to build it up and include everyone. And there's a way to do that, and a way to sequence through that everyone comes through and has their version and feels like they're really a valuable part of the group.
I agree that the language and the messaging that the teacher says is so important. I mean, we're planting so many seeds. And those seeds have ripples. You have to be cognizant of what's being said between the lines, or how someone could be hearing that. I haven't done a trauma-informed yoga certification, or I haven't done an accessible yoga certification, but from what I've read and from conversations I've had, it just is definitely something I want to do, to make sure I'm being very mindful to always offer it just as an invitation. You certainly don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to touch the floor or whatever it is. It's just, I invite you to in this direction should you want to go in it.
Yes, awesome. And Diane Bondi is one of my teachers in accessible yoga and curvy yoga. And she's got an awesome theory that she uses, and it's called the bus stop method. So it's like you're going off, and this might be your stop, and off you get, and this is for you. And then otherwise, no, you're carrying on to the mall, so you're going to get off at that stop. Because it's like, oh, you're just choosing which one you want. And no one is better than the other.
No, it is important to not have that hierarchy in there, saying like this, as you said, this is the full expression, and here are the modifications. As you said, it's step by step, just saying phase one. Maybe there's just a couple of you out there who will want to try this element of it. I am not a pretzel. I am not a hyper mobile, hyper flexible. I am not. And when I see that's what's being portrayed in the media so predominantly, it just hurts my heart. Because as you mentioned, it's just so much about the yamas, niyamas, the meditation, the gift of presence, and our breath is more important even than the movement in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
So, what are your feelings about that as well? I guess the media portrayal.
Oh, don't get me started. It really does hurt my heart as well. I hear you with that. I get really saddened with the stereotype that is yoga. And the part that saddens me is that it puts so many people off, and that's just wrong. But it's not really even about the body, yoga. People just think, and I did too for a long time. I thought my body was wrong for yoga. I wasn't worthy of the practice, which is terrible. But I've been on a big journey with that and come through and realize, hell, yes, I am. Everybody is. I'm also in a curvy, bigger body, so that's also a bit of a stereotype kick that isn't portrayed in yoga, that it's for all sizes and shapes. So I really like to attract and draw people in that feel that's them as well, that they don't think that they are part of a normal class, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, when you Google yoga, the first 40 pages of it is fascinating to see what's represented. So I feel really passionate about standing up for other bodies, making it more inclusive and represented different size, shapes, disabilities. It's not always easy. And I'm an introvert. I'm sort of sometimes a little bit shy. And so I can't believe I'm actually doing this, but I just have a really strong feeling about it, and it runs deeper than the yoga, just the way that if your body isn't fitting a certain size, shape, colour, you're down on the hierarchy. So it's just wrong. So I'm really happy to be a peaceful warrior in that, trying to change that.
And thank you for your work in doing that. I wish there was more peaceful warriors out there getting more light shined on them because it needs to be illuminated and highlighted.
Yeah.
And Jen, I would love to hear, what do you think can be done to make yoga more inclusive and to have more bodies represented?
Yeah, good point. I would love to see individual yoga teachers just like me, kind of man bands often, for people to put their imaging for their advertising often out for this. So I see a yoga teacher saying, yoga, my classes are for everybody. I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, I'll see what they're up to. And I go through and it's just, the imaging is, I can't see myself there at all. And, not just me, that will happen for a lot of people. And their studio has stairs up to it. So it's like, that's not for everybody. People to be really way aware of what they're putting out there in their advertising and the way they're upholding that stereotype without realizing it. Because I know some of the people I know and I've seen advertising their pictures. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really portray what you're doing. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of an awareness, and I'd really love to see the yoga teacher training, the Yoga Alliance, have accessible yoga as almost a compulsory part of training. The trainings that you can go and get in 2 weeks in Bali type thing. Even the more comprehensive trainings, I'd love to see it as a compulsory part to really open people's eyes to the way that you can include everybody. I think that would be a great start.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think 200 hours isn't enough. And I do think that it's great that we always are continuing to, or hopefully, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be speaking for everyone, but I know it's a priority for me to continue my education. And last year in 2021, I did prenatal and postnatal, 150 hours, and then 150 hours in yoga philosophy and psychology, and really focusing on the mental health side of it as well. It was really beautiful. And I'm so grateful for that time spent. But as you said, when it comes to accessible yoga, it just makes so much sense that it should be just included automatically in the groundwork, because you can't be a teacher and only teach to one specific type of person or one body type. I mean, I don't know how to appropriately say that, but I hope you get my drift.
I do. I know what you mean. It gets hard sometimes to articulate it.
Yeah, but I was wondering, you said something, Jen, really interesting. You said that you feel that yoga teachers can sometimes uphold the stereotype without even realizing it. And you notice that in their websites or their campaigns or their presence. What do you specifically kind of tune into or tap into? What are you specifically observing?
Yeah. So the white, middle class, able-bodied, average to thin shape of body woman, that, putting it quite bluntly, of the image and flexible and looking calm and serene and everything's fine and a little bit toxic positivity type thing. That kind of image. It's for a person that's struggled with weight all their lives and low self-esteem and has got really tight muscles and has a lot of anxiety, just can't relate to, and just thinks I could never get there. That's just too hard to attain. That kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That could definitely be the social media presence and website presence where you just see that on repeat, as you said, the first 40 pages, which I hope our listeners really heard that. It wasn't 40 images. Images of Google is just representative of just a slice of the population.
Absolutely. It's just so off-putting for so many people. People saying, I just don't feel like I don't feel comfortable going to a normal, in quotes, yoga class, which is really sad. And they, in my class, say sometimes things like, lift your belly out the way, or if your big butts, I think this or that. People are just feedback and they say, oh my God, I've never heard that sort of thing in a yoga class before. Thank you for giving me permission to accept that I have a bit of a belly or my boobs are getting in the way or whatever. It's different things that just never get spoken about. And there's often an undertone of you need to change your body, not let's just accept what's there and let's work with it and find some joyful movement.
Ooh, yes. And you gave me the perfect leeway into my next question, which is you say, Jen, that you help others on their journey to body peace. Can you explain more of what that means? Because it is so beautiful. I just want to hear you talk about it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Journey to Body Peace. That's my signature course that I'm developing. Because it's a journey. It's a lot of body positivity out there, which is great, but it's also a hard thing to achieve if your whole life you've been treated by society and messaging that your body's wrong. That might be through some sort of disability or your size and shape. So it's really hard to flick into positivity. So there's a lot out there to say, I think there's a lot of people that are going, well, I can't do that. That's too hard. So I really like the body peace, which is acting in a more accepting way. And I really like journey to body peace because never 100% there, or you might be for a day or a week or a few moments, but it goes in and out because it's a daily battle to these messages bombarded that your body's not quite what's desirable. So it's a journey, and I love to show people onto that path and see that you can be on it at different stages and different times and not beat yourself up. Because when I say we that have had this journey of feeling like their body's wrong all their lives, to beat ourselves up and think it's our fault that we don't fit into this norm. I want that to happen at yoga as well. So I really want people to realise, and my students to realise, that it's a journey. You'll come in and out of it. Maybe if you just put a big toe on the path and you see and experience this, it's just so exciting. And I feel like I'm on the path now and I'll never get off it again. But it doesn't mean I'm at any sort of destination or at the end. It's, finding those pockets and those areas of peace and acceptance and joyful movement in my body and realising that I am worthy. And that's just such a beautiful feeling when all your life you had the opposite.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's a daily battle, a daily conversation, a daily self-talk. It's not something that I think very few of us don't have that kind of daily monologue or daily conversation. So the journey to body peace, when I heard you say that and read that on your online pages, I just felt like, oh, that just resonated so beautifully, because to have that acceptance and that love and that just quietude, like I accept myself how I am today. No judgment, don't need to change anything. It's that I think that not constant desire to want to change things, I think that's something that is very important, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel it's so missing from our society, from the classes that you're encouraged to do, from the gyms that you're encouraged to sign up to, and unfortunately also the yoga. A lot of it is most aesthetic gymnastics, not really that deep connection to yourself, your self-love, your worthiness.
Yes, as well as the aesthetic versus the functional. The purpose isn't to be this, gorgeous pretzel or this something that simply looks really beautiful. It's just not the purpose. It is to get into the muscles, into the fascia, into the body, and really be working on releasing tension in the physical, mental, and emotional bodies, as well as being able to breathe in discomfort, being able to be mindful of the micro elements of the movement and how the body responds, being curious, like, oh, I feel that more in my lumbar today. Like, I love that. It's kind of being so mindful and not letting the mind just go from here to there, drifting around. It's really about being present, grateful, and then hopefully over time, your teachers are guiding you towards, as you said, that self-love and that peace and contentment.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a discipline when you say about the mind. Discipline to bring it back and connect to the body and the breath and not let it run away with the story of, oh, I'm not very good at this and look at her, she's doing it better than me, or, discipline to pull that mind in during the practice. She can then take off the mat, of course, to your daily life. It's such a rich practice. It teaches you so much, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Jen, I'd also like to ask if any of our listeners today are practicing yoga or are interested in practicing yoga and they have a prosthetic or a physical limitation, they're not able-bodied. What tips do you have for them?
Definitely be a connoisseur to find a good teacher. Almost interview your teacher. Highly recommend some privates first. So I often do that with people that approach me. I had someone yesterday with a official hip and she's got all sorts of things going on. So I was like, yes, you'd be great in a class, but let's do three to five privates first to really see what's going on with your body and what's going to work for you. Really finding a teacher that's done accessible yoga training would be important, and having someone to guide them, definitely one-on-one. And then when they join a class, the teacher has less time, obviously, to help you one-on-one the whole way through. So just keeping in mind what's trying to be achieved here, this warrior that they're holding, what's the main purpose, and listen to the teacher's cues, grounding down through your feet, lifting up through your fingertips sort of thing. You can still achieve that in a wheelchair. Even if you don't have sensation or feeling in your legs, still have that sense of prana in your lower half, even though you may be paralysed. That sense of grounding down into your chair might be through your pelvis. And then you feel into the idea of the prana all the way down into the energy into your feet, into the earth. And then you can lift up through your arms and your body. You could still create that same energy that the teacher's trying to take you on the journey. So just keeping that in mind rather than focusing on, oh, I can't do that. So almost as an observer, you'd look like you're doing the same thing, but really getting into what's behind the guide the teacher is trying to get the group to do.
There is so much going on with the prana. I'm so glad you brought that up. It is so important to be mindful and send the energy there, because even with the breath, if I'm saying breathe into your hips, can you actually breathe into your hips? Arguably, your diaphragm gets you close, but I mean, that's the intention of the energy. And I promise you'll feel something different.
And Matthew Sanford, if anyone is listening out there and is in a wheelchair, in Body Solutions, Matthew Sanford is one of my teachers, and he's been in a wheelchair since he's 8. The way he talks about all this is incredible. It's really awesome. And so if that's a good little to follow if you're interested in that, the way prana works through a paralysed body, it's incredible.
Wonderful. Thank you for that recommendation. And Jen, at this point, I'd love to learn a little bit more about New Zealand and learn what the yoga scene in New Zealand is like.
Yeah, New Zealand is awesome. We feel very lucky at the moment to be in this beautiful country at bottom of the earth. It has escaped a lot of the drama of COVID. So we're so blessed, a government that's hardly got any corruption or anything going on, and we live just in a beautiful land. So we're a big island, but surrounded by ocean, and there's just so much natural beauty here. It's just a stunning place to be. And the yoga scene sort of started here in about the 60s, sort of started slowly and then built up into being more of a white middle class thing. So it's still got a ways to go to spread more to all people, to becoming a lot more multicultural here now, which is great. Yoga's still got a way to go to be accessible, just physically accessible, which is what I've talked about a lot here today, but financially as well, all populations. So and we're still a relatively small country, so population-wise, so we're getting there, but it could be a lot better. Also, there is quite a comprehensive yoga in prisons program here, which is really awesome. So that started a long time ago as well, and it's been going quite well. And so there's quite a good program that you can hook into and volunteer as a yoga teacher and go into work in the prisons, which has had a lot of really positive official effects there. So that's really awesome here. But yeah, it's still got a long way to go as accessibility. I don't know many other teachers here that bring this accessible yoga, adaptive yoga, like I am. There's a few, not many at all. So a long way to go for New Zealand here. And so I'm hoping to offer some training programs soon for teacher training as a little module, like I talked about before, to open people's eyes to doing it a little bit of a different way.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, you'll have to let me know when that module goes live and when you launch your TTCs and everything, Jen. I'll sign up for your e-newsletter, and I will definitely put a link to your website and to your social media platforms below so that everyone else can stay in the loop. Also, before I let you go, Jen, I would love to know, what is your definition of yoga? I know there's some classic definitions, but I was wondering what your personal definition of yoga is.
Oh, I think the first thing that comes to mind is a bicycle union connection. It's really cornerstone, the key of what I come back to with all my accessible teaching and everyone I work with. That's what we're doing. We're finding that connection. We're not seeing if our arms in a certain place and, in a certain shape. What we're doing here is connecting mind body. And so that awareness of present moment awareness of your presence and not getting towed around by the stories in your mind, just that beautiful, peaceful, heart-knowing connection is what yoga is really, for me, the essence of it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. As I mentioned, I'll put your links in the show notes and on my website, wildyogatribe.com. But is there another way you recommend we'll get in touch with you or anything else?
I think my website's the best. Due to the last couple of years, just like probably a lot of our yoga teachers out there, I've got quite an extensive online studio now. So I've got lots of videos that can be watched. You can sign up for a monthly subscription to that, or there's a handful of free ones that you can have watched to get an idea. And I've got quite a lot of variation videos. So I go through particular poses and show you how to adapt for different conditions, different reasons. So they're really useful to watch and use, especially if you're then going to go to a class. You're armed with some tools. So they're really awesome. So yeah, just my website, and then I've got live classes on there for my online studio. If you're in New Zealand and I'm in Birkenhead, Auckland, so getting in touch in person would be awesome. Yeah, just through email or any of my social medias, Instagram, Facebook. I check all of those messages. So yeah, it's really good these days. It's easy to be in touch with people from all over the world.
So thank you so much, Jen, for sharing your light and your story with us today. It has been a joy to be with you.
Thank you. It's been beautiful. It's been really lovely to meet you, and for sharing all this. Your podcast is so unique. I just love it. I'm looking forward to working through all the different countries. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. My conversation with Jennie Jackson, a yoga teacher from New Zealand, was so invigorating as we talked about accessible yoga and how to make yoga more inclusive for all bodies. And I hope that this conversation made you realize that yoga is for every body, and it's not actually just about the body. If you're looking to tune into a podcast episode that is all about cultivating a purpose and intention of being on a journey towards body peace and being inclusive and compassionate every step of the way, then this is the conversation for you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Be well. Thank you for the gift of your attention today. If you feel called, please share this episode with someone who you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. Also, I hope you can join me for yoga classes live streamed and on demand on Moxie, a new platform where I'm hosting classes. To take advantage of those $15 off coupons available for new students, the links are in the show notes as well as on my website, wildyogatribe.com. I'll see you on the mat. And as always, be well, dear one, be well.